What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As y'all probably saw by the montage, I purchased a brand new graphics card. We have the Radeon RX 9070 XT. This is the ASRock Steel Legend variant. I know y'all got a relatively good look at it in the video itself and that little montage, but we're going to take a little look at it. So right here we have the fans. They have RGB in them. Looks pretty nice, nothing too crazy. And then as y'all can see right here, we've got our two PCIEs as well as an RGB header. And then if y'all take a look at the back here, we have an exposed PCB as well as plenty of cooling on it. And then this nice metal back plate. So the video today, we're going to be installing it into the PC as well as running some benchmarks, probably playing some games and just kind of seeing what it runs like. As well as maybe doing a little bit of undervolting. I did kind of do a little bit of research into undervolting, overclocking for this GPU. And from what I can tell, it seems like undervolting gives you the most bang for your buck. So I might do like some comparisons pre and post undervolting. That way I'll kind of have an idea of what you can look at and what kind of FPS variants you can expect in it. As well as, like I said, just showing the installation. This is my first ever new GPU purchase. In the last video, I talked to you a little bit about what I did with that PC. It came from a pre-build, and then we moved it into a new case, as well as did some upgrades to it. But this is my first time ever buying a graphics card separately. Quite an exciting experience, as well as, I mean, it's a crazy upgrade going from the 4060 Ti 8 gig to the 9070 XT 16 gigabyte. We're going from, you know, kind of the low end from last gen to the upper echelon type area for the next gen. So I'm pretty excited to be able to play some hopefully extremely high frame rate 1440p, possibly delve into ray tracing for the first time ever. And I guess we're going to experience it for the first time together. So we're going to hop right into the installation, and then I do already have the drivers installed into the PC. So it should be a relatively quick installation, and just turn it on, and then we're going to test it out and go from there. Alright guys, so this should be a relatively simple installation. I already got my second 8-pin RAN and kind of cable managed. I do need to do more cable management at some point. The only thing I did not show during that first video, this is the little cable that we use to connect the RGB on the card to the motherboard. I did actually have to go order it off of Amazon because I actually bought this card open box from Micro Center. So I guess whoever returned it open box did not return it with the RGB cable. But I did get this card for $629 whenever right now the cheapest you can usually find this card is for like $700. And this thing, like I said, I mean, it looks basically brand new. You can't tell it's ever been used or touched at all. Like, you could probably tell me that somebody just opened the box and then sent it back. So for a $70 discount from what this card's selling for and just having to spend $7 on a cable, I'll take that all day long. So now all we're going to do, I do already have this pushed back, is we're going to push this in until we hear a click. Hopefully we can do it first try and not embarrass ourselves on camera here. Have not, like I said, I've not installed graphics cards a whole lot. We're just going to install it and push it until we hear a click.
Nice.
Well, maybe not a click, but it is in there. And then all we have to do now is go in and install our little screws here, which should be a relatively easy process. Go ahead and do this one. Like I said, I've taken the other graphics card in and out a few times, so I mean, I have a little bit of experience with this. Nothing crazy. I do have this going backwards though, which would probably help if I could do it the right way. There we go. I mean, you don't have to do it too tight. Put in this other one here, like so. Having this magnetic screwdriver has been a godsend, I will say that. I hope I got this all lined up. We'll see, I guess. I don't think I do. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. A little trouble. Got it going in here now. You don't have to get this thing too crazy tight, so. Alright, that should be good. We're going to put on this little piece right here, like so. Hold that there. Got to find the teeny tiny screw that goes in that. Easier said than done, I guess. This is my first time ever doing anything like this on recording, so pardon me if it's a little awkward. kind of trying hard to focus on this, so I forget that I need to talk about stuff sometimes. Okay, but with that, we now have it installed. So now all we should need to do is just run our 2 cables here. Should be relatively simple. Just get them connected like so. This is a relatively tight run I've got going here, but we should just be able to slide these in, hopefully relatively easily. Yep, like so. There we go. And then we're gonna run our other one here. If I can get this to connect like this, maybe. Let's see here. There we go, like so. And then all we need to do now is install our little cable here, which I did kind of struggle with last time because these little freaking pins are kind of difficult to see. But we're just gonna push one in right there, and then the other one, 1 second here. All right, that was a little bit of a struggle. Now all we should need to do is just plug in my DisplayPort cables and then turn on the power to the PC. And we will see if we get a post with this new graphics card. We do have some lights on it, as y'all can see, which is really good to see. And now we're just gonna see if it comes on. So let's take a look, see here. Come on, first try, first try. Oh, there we go. Looks like we have a post. So I think what we are going to do now is we're going to hop on to the PC and see how this thing performs, what it looks like, and do some benchmarks and some gaming on it. So. Alright guys, so as y'all can see here, we are in the AMD Adrenalin software. I have already kind of messed around with it a little bit, but I do currently have my tuning all set to the base, just the default. So we've got our GPU clock, fan speed, VRAM clock speed, temperature, voltage, board power, the whole thing here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and run a couple of different benchmarks. That way y'all can kind of see what the base looks like. I can kind of get a look of what the base will look like. And then we're going to go from there. I've watched a few videos. We're going to go to custom and kind of mess around with the GPU tuning, VRAM tuning, power, and kind of mess around with all of that. And we will see how big of a difference it makes. I'm not going to go too crazy in depth because personally, I'm just not that in tune with like knowing how to do all the different benchmarks. I don't have that many benchmarks. I don't have like a whole lot of games with built-in benchmarks and stuff like that. So we're probably going to do 3D Mark Time Spy, the Furmark 1440p test, and then I might jump into Marvel Rivals and just kind of get a look of what that looks like in 1440p. And then we'll probably finish the video off there. I'm not trying to act like I know a whole bunch of stuff I do not. I'm still kind of learning. It's never really had a card that I felt like was strong enough that I really care to do too much benchmarking on it. So we're going to jump over and do some benchmarking and I will show you all the results. Alright guys, so I just did the Furmark P1440 test on it. I scored 11,986, 198 FPS. And then if you look right here, we'll go ahead and put this into full screen. We hit a top temperature of 80 degrees Celsius on the memory, 82 for the hotspot, and then about 61 for the GPU overall. Fans only spooled up to 1500 RPM, which feels pretty low. Pulled 318 watts. The card got up to 2,687 megahertz, memory at 2,505. And so yeah, that's not too bad. That's just the base. I do believe that's a relatively low score. I do know that this is just kind of a base level, like 0 overclock version of the 9070 XT. But once we do our few other tests, like I said, we're going to undervolt it and see what kind of difference we can get on it. All right, guys, so we just finished our 3D Mark Time Spy. As y'all can see, we scored a 22,601. Not super worried about the CPU score. I still have to do a CPU upgrade in the future. So overall, this total score as well as the CPU score doesn't matter too much to me. But we did get a 29,208 for the graphics score. And then if we go over here, full screen this, as y'all can see, 78C for the memory was the temperature, 81 for the hotspot, 61 for the global, 1519 RPM on the fans. Did pull a little bit more as far as total board power, went up to 322. The graphics megahertz was at 3052, memory at 2505 again, which I think the memory is going to stay locked in at whatever I set it at. We utilized 100% of the GPU. And overall, yeah, so that's going to be the test for that. And then I think the only other thing I'm going to run through and test now is just Marvel Rivals. I'm going to turn it on at 1440p max graphics and just kind of find a spot and see what kind of FPS we get. And then after that, I will go through and show y'all the changes I'm making in the Adrenaline software, and then we will rerun all of these tests. All right, guys, so we're Marvel Rivals. I just jumped into the practice range. I'm not trying to talk about my stats and everything while I'm in the middle of a game. So I found this, and this can kind of be our consistent test point. So as y'all can see, we're sitting right around 90 FPS with our 99% lows, right around 79, 78 to 80. GPU clock and everything like that, I'm not too worried about that on this. We'll kind of talk more about that in our actual benchmark tests. But yeah, so we're sitting right around 90 FPS. I'll show you all my settings. So you go into display, we're at 1440p. We have no FSR or anything like that on. No frame gen, no anti-lag, which I think I could probably turn that on, but that doesn't really matter right now. And then if you see here in the graphics, we are in Ultra, which has everything absolutely maxed out. And yeah, so I mean, we're at 1440p max settings. Like I said, sitting right around 90, 92 FPS. If we kind of go over here into the action, I mean, it stays relatively consistent. It actually seems like it jumped up a little bit. With us being in the middle of everything. So we're topping out right around 100 to 104, I guess it looks like, which overall I think is super good. Very playable experience. Obviously, you're not going to really want to play like this on a competitive game like this, but it's a pretty cool little test. I wish that they would put a built-in benchmark into Marvel Rivals, because I know a lot of people throw it into their benchmarks. But yeah, so now we are going to go and I will show you all the changes we'll be making in the Adrenaline software. And then we're going to be redoing all of these tests. All right, guys, so we're back in the Adrenaline software. So all we're going to do is we're going to head over here to performance. I did off camera kind of do some testing to figure out what was a relatively stable level as far as custom went. So we're going to go here, turn on our GPU tuning, VRAM tuning, power tuning, and our fan tuning. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to turn our memory timing to fast timing. I do that every time. I did see that a lot of people say if it does make any difference, it's kind of negligible. But I mean, regardless, if it doesn't hurt it and it's not like changing anything negatively, it can't do anything but help. So that's kind of my thought process on it. We're going to raise our max power limit to 10. Go ahead and apply those. We are going to go into a advanced fan control here, fine tuning. And then what I like to do is right around 85. I like to be, we're going to max it out at 100, 75 here. So actually, I'm not going to do that. So I like to max it out at 100, right around 85. I think this card can go up higher, but I'd rather not have it hit that because at some point you're going to hit some thermal throttling. So I like to just get it at a relatively straight line like so, make it kind of a consistent follow through. That way, I mean, there's no real science into this, but that way it's consistently increasing in speed as the GPU gets hotter. And overall, that should help with any thermal throttling we might have. I am still learning about fan curves, so there could be a better way to set it up, but for now, this will be better than just the default one because it does not go nearly high enough on default. And then I'm not even going to touch the frequency offset, which would be the actual overclocking. The main thing I'm going to worry about is our voltage offset. So we're going to do some undervolting. In my testing, between 120 and 130 works. I'm going to set it at 130 and see if it works. It did work for 3D Mark Time Spy, and it worked in like Marvel Rivals and everything like that. But I do believe I had a crash set at whenever I had it set at 130, whenever I was doing the Furmark, because that is extremely hard on the graphics card. Like it does 100% and it pushes it pretty hard. But we're going to do 130 for now. And if I do have a crash, I'll drop it down to maybe 125 or 120. And then we will see what that looks like on all of our benchmarks again. All right, guys. So I just reran our Furmark benchmark. It did run all the way through at the 130 millivolts undervolt. So we went from an 11,986 to a 13,345 score. The FPS went from 198 to 220, which is roughly an 11.1% increase. Which again, just for undervolting and an increase in the power. I mean, we did a few changes, but nothing super crazy. I would actually say that's a pretty nice little jump. And then as far as our, let's see what we got here. So we ran a 72 degrees Celsius for the memory, 76 for the hotspot, and 54 for the global. So we dropped about 6 degrees Celsius for our memory, roughly 5% on the hotspot, and about 7% for the global. So the undervolt is doing its job. It dropped all of our temps. The fan speed obviously was also probably helping a lot because our fan speed did almost double. So that probably also played a pretty large, because we did go from 1500 to 3028 RPM. So that probably played a huge role as well. We did pull roughly, what is it? We went from 322 watts to 353 watts. Quite a large jump. And then overall, it looks like our graphics clocks actually dropped a little bit. Not 100% sure like if that's expected with undervolting or not. But we did go from a 3052 to a 2883. But then we did jump from a 2,500 to a 2,786 on our memory, which I would say is a pretty good, I mean, again, 11% as far as the total increase, regardless of these finer numbers. Some of you guys watching this video may know a little bit more about it than I do. But yeah, an 11.1% jump just from undervolting, not doing any overclocking, I would say is a pretty nice jump. And then we're going to go straight from this over into our 3D Mark Time Spy, and then I will give you all a rundown of everything after we get that done. All right, guys, we just finished up with our 3D Mark Time Spy score. So if you take a look, the main score that matters is the graphics score for us. We went from a 30,968. No. We went from a 29,208 on the last test to a 30,968. So just under 31,000. Which roughly is a 6% increase for the graphics score. And then we went from a 22,601 total score to a 23,296, which is roughly a 3% increase. But the main reason for the drop is our CPU score did drop a little bit. We went from a 9,906 to 9,692. Again, though, at the end of the day, as long as we get a decent increase on the graphics score, that's what we're looking for here. And I would say 6% is a pretty nice little jump. And then let's take a look really quickly at our hardware monitor here. So if you take a look, we went from a 80 degrees Celsius on our memory to 72 degrees Celsius. We went from 82 degrees Celsius on our hotspot to 80. So there's actually only a 2 degrees Celsius drop for the hotspot. But then we did go from a 61 to a 55. Which again is a pretty nice little drop. The fan speed actually was a little higher than even on the Furmark. We went from a 1500 to a 3200, which is roughly 86%. It looks like it jumped up to. And then we went from pulling 318 total watts to 359. So a pretty nice little jump. But there is actually a pretty nice little jump on our graphics megahertz. It says we pulled 3,179 megahertz. Where pre the undervolt, we were only doing 2,687. And then again, we went from a 2,505 to a 2,786 megahertz score for the memory, which again will stay consistent. That's just what we have it set at. All right, guys, back in Marvel Rivals. So basically, I think whenever we were sitting here, we were sitting roughly around like 90 to 92 FPS. Now we're currently sitting right around 96 to 98. Let's head back down here. For some reason, we did notice a little bit of a jump in our FPS down here. We were sitting right around 100. That's kind of just the average I got. I saw like 96, 98, 100, 102. So I figure about 100 average.
and now we're sitting right around 108 to roughly 110. So I would say roughly we get about even if you're being generous, a 6 to 8, maybe 10% increase in FPS overall on the game. Which again, that's nothing to shake a stick at. If you take a look, let me scoot over so we don't die while we're sitting here. Take a look just to double verify for you guys. 1440p, no upscaling, no frame gen. Ultra settings completely maxed out. Again, we're sitting, I mean, drops down to 104 here and there, but roughly 106, 104, 108. So yeah, a nice little probably like 4 to 7 or 8% increase. I'll take that all day, every day again. Even then, I'd say the 1% lows are definitely higher too. Our 1% lows are sitting right around 88 to 94. I know our 1% lows in the actual, in the first one before we undervolted it, we're sitting a little lower, probably roughly the low 80s. Now they're averaging like the high 80s to low 90s. So yeah, like I said, I'd say if we're being generous, because I mean here and there we're hitting 112, 115. Probably about a 6 to 10% increase on FPS just from doing the undervolt for Marvel Rivals. So yes, I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and jump back onto the camera and finish off the video. Just have a little talk about the GPU, my thoughts on it, and if I think that the purchase of $630 was worth it.
All right, guys, so we're all done with the benchmarking now. Sorry if the video is a little all over the place. I'm still have a lot to learn about PCs, so as I'm trying to do these benchmarks and learn about the undervolting, overclocking, and stuff like that, everything may not come out exactly right whenever I'm trying to explain it in the videos. Hopefully the more and more videos like this we make, the better it'll get. Overall though, I mean, I think we got the main point with just a simple undervolt and increasing the memory clocks as well as the power allocation to 110%. We're able to get anywhere from 6 to 11% on an increase, at least for the test that we did, which overall, I mean, if you're getting even a 5 to 10% increase on anything, that's not too bad at all. I do know on some of the OC models, they're already pushing, I want to say, like 4 to 6% increase as far as their boost clocks and stuff like that. I don't know what that refers to as far as real worlds in the graphics. So like benchmarks and stuff like that. I'd have to watch some videos on it and kind of see the comparisons. But overall, hopefully I'll get a little bit of an understanding of what it looks like to kind of do an undervolt. Like I said, from what I've seen, and even the little bit of experience I had messing with it, it seems like the overclock didn't really do much. The amount it increased was so minor, but then it would pull more power or pull from other places. It didn't really make any sense. And from what I've seen, these cards already have a lot of power in them. And they're already running really high clocks for what they're, what they're made to do. So I think the undervolt will overall obviously help with the graphics, help with your FPS and everything like that, as well as it should, I think, increase the lifespan of your card, because I mean, again, you're running it at a lower voltage than what you should be, or what you can, or what it's made to run at. So overall, no complaints from me. Again, the card I think is extremely beautiful. I know I heard a few people talking about it looks kind of plasticky, whatever. I think once you put it in the PC, you can't really tell that it's plastic. I mean, it's a nice matte finish on the plastic. So I think it looks decent. If RGB obviously isn't your thing, then this is definitely not the card for you. I don't mind it. I already have a lot of RGB in my PC, so adding a little bit, especially what little bits on the bottom of the card, it's not super noticeable in there. It adds a little bit of a touch, but it doesn't really, I don't think it really affects it negatively. And then, so my overall thoughts on it, do I regret buying it? No, not at all. I can max out 1440p on basically any game. Once I hopefully get a better CPU, which I know CPUs, once you get into like 1440p and 4K, don't make too much of a difference. But again, once I get a better CPU and a better monitor, because I only have a 1440p 180 hertz monitor, I can maybe even run like mid to low 4Ks, which would be cool for recording any video gameplay that I may do in the future. So I think that I have a lot of future proof with this card. I know future proof's not exactly a thing, but I get some future proof out of it, where hopefully for at least 3-4 years this card should run pretty good on most any game, hopefully in 1440p, and at least until a point where if I'm making PC content and I can start to afford the newest graphics cards when they come out. That's why I purchased this one versus going with something like a 9060 XT 16GB, which would still run 1440p just fine and run everything I needed it to. just to have something that will hopefully last me a lot longer if that's what I need. And I was going back and forth a lot between this and the 5070 Ti, and I do know as far as it goes, like with benchmarks and graphics, it seems like it's kind of a driver update war, because the AMD released a new driver and now the 9070 XT is better. I feel like at some point NVIDIA, if they get their graphic drivers in line, they could release a driver that'll make the 5070 Ti better. So I feel like it just kind of depends on what you want. I do know the 5070 Ti, from what I've seen in a lot of the games I play, does run in a lower FPS, but it's better still a little bit for ray tracing, and I know DLSS is a little bit more widely available. I'm not 100% sure if it would make sense or if I would have been happier or less happy with one or the other. But I do enjoy getting to try a different side of the field, kind of like if you use an iPhone and switch to Android, going from NVIDIA to AMD. I do know that I'll lose some of the AI features I use, like whenever I record with my webcam, I actually use like an AI green screen, but I do have a green screen that I can set up, so that's not the end of the world. The biggest difference for me is going to be having the 16 gigabytes of VRAM and just an overall stronger card. So for me, I would recommend anyone to buy it, whether it's the 9070 XT Steel Legend or any of the other models. I think it's an amazing card, and I'm going to hopefully continue to use it for a long time. So other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to give me a lot of feedback down below. I'm still doing a lot of learning. Something I do want to do in the near future, because I do want to upgrade my motherboard at some point too, to like a B850 or something with a PCIe Gen 5 for the graphics card. I know it's not a major difference, but in the future there might be bigger difference on it. And I'm looking at possibly getting the B850 Steel Legend, so then I'll have a nice like black and white theme going on with the matching Steel Legend motherboard and graphics card. I could change my mind as the time goes on, but that's kind of my plan right now, so it's not just one white piece and a black computer, to kind of get that black and white Stormtrooper vibe, and then also probably some black and white cable extensions to kind of make it mix quite well, I would feel like. That's something I'm hopefully going to have in the near future, as both of those. So other than that though, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all in the next one. If y'all enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Peace.